Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another edition of 10-Minute Misconduct, where we discuss all of the things that are happening in Leafs Nation, go over some previous games, go over some topics of the day. And before we get into it, I want to give a little shout out to longtime listener Sammy B, who Bobby, he thinks in our emoji that Frank created, he said that you look like a young Canadian Prince William. And I got to agree, because I don't know if we could put up a picture of Prince William and the emoji. I think there's a striking resemblance.
You'll see the emoji in the bottom left, so you'll be able to see what that looks like.
There you go.
I've definitely gotten that before, and I've always felt like I am royalty, and I bring a bit of elegance and arrogance to the show. So
spray my arrogance.
Yes.
What a class here on the Puckin Sports Network.
That's a reference to the model Rick Martel. Love it. I love it.
Definitely. And before we get into it, Frankie, I know you want to give a quick shout out also. So
yeah, man. Quick shout out to our boy. You guys know him on Leafs Nation. I like the lifeblood of Leafs Nation, the pulse. Curtis from Alberta. He's we all know him from his videos and the ultimate Leaf man cave that been all over Twitter and social media. Friend of the show, and he's going through a little bit of some health issues right now, but we want to just give him some best wishes and get well soon to Curtis. Hope we get him on the show before the playoffs and talk some Leafs, but we love your videos, Curtis, and get well soon, buddy. If you guys want to send some love, he's at LeafGuy403 on Twitter, so hit him up and send him a line.
That's a great handle.
Yeah, awesome. It is. Hope you're doing well, Curtis. All right, guys. So I just want to point out now, I'm wearing a Mitch Marner shirt for the first time since last year's playoffs. I couldn't even, it was at the bottom of my drawer. Every time I came back to the top of the drawer, I would slip it right back to the bottom. I say, I can't wear this. And I got to say, he's won me over with his play the last month. He's probably been one of, or if not the best player in the league the last month. He's been on fire. And this is the Mitch Marner that we need, the Leafs need in order to have playoff success. They didn't get it last year and the team folded. He is one of the big straws that stirs the drink. We need Mitch. We need you. We need this version of you. So hopefully we can get that together. What do you think of Mitch Marner's play of late, guys?
Well, you might be wearing a Mitch Marner shirt, but I bet you Curtis actually has Mitch Marner's shirt.
No doubt. You see how many jerseys he has? Yeah.
Joe, how can you disagree? I think we've said enough on here where we really don't praise Marner a lot because we expect so much from him. But, we always say it's tough to outplay your contract. This looks like the guy who makes that contract look valuable right now. I know it's tough to do, but how can you argue against that? Who would have thought the second leading, goal scoring streak in Leafs history would not go to Auston Matthews, but Mitch Marner, which is a good sign because if you remember, or if you heard his interview when he was coming back, he had the injury, went into the COVID protocol. There was a bit of a break, all that stuff. He came out saying, I'm ready to go. Like, I want to score. You know what I mean? Like we've heard that before, but the trends of his game, he actually started taking more shots, and he's been working on his shot. He's been working with Matthews, and I think Darryl Belfry working on the deceptiveness of his shot. So you're not knowing where it's coming from. So it's not going to be as good as Auston Matthews, but kind of learning that whole Nylander Matthews, where as you release the puck, you really don't know where it's going, right? So credit to him, if he's doing that, and that's what we need. That's what we've pinpointed last year as one of the main issues of that power play was he was never a shooting threat. I don't know about you, but he's shooting a lot more, especially on the power play, which is a very good sign. Sign that where your power play is the best power play in the league, and your PK is fourth. They haven't had that in a long, long time. And that is special teams wins you playoffs. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it is a good ingredient. So it's a good start anyways, to get in that series win.
Did they ever have that in our lifetimes? Like a top power play and a top penalty kill?
Yes, this actually came up, I believe, the last time. I think it's called, if you guys, I think it's named after a Bowman. It's they call it like a Scotty Bowman stat because he always had good special teams. But if you take the the power play ranking and you add that to your penalty kill ranking, divide by 2, that would give you your league average. So right now, if they sit first on the power play and fourth, I believe, on the penalty kill, combined, that's 5th, which that's like top 2 or top 3 in the league. So the last time they did that, I believe it was 2001, 2002, 2003. Sorry, the shortened season. If you want to take that away, the last time they did it was 93, and we all kind of know how magical that year was. So, yeah,
it's surprising that a guy like Scotty Bowman, who had no talent, was had such good special teams.
Tell that to Ken Hitchcock too. Couldn't skate.
Quite surprising. I think Marner actually ties into another guy on this team, Jack Campbell, but for obviously different reasons. Marner was kind of off to a slower start for his standards, and Jack Campbell was off to a fiery start. Now, I'm a mathematics guy, and in mathematics, there's a fundamental principle of, it's called the law of large numbers, and it's pretty simple. It's that the more numbers and data set we get on something, the more accurate the number is going to be. For example, if we were to flip a coin 10 times, it might come up heads or tails 7, 8, 9 times. But the more data points you flip, more times we get it, it's going to even out to 50-50.
We had a larger sample size, Rob.
Large sample size, same thing. We call it the law of large numbers, though.
Sorry. Okay.
And so whenever you can take a subset of numbers and basically manipulate them to say whatever you want. I'm sure Frank likes the, hey, on Thursdays after after Hanukkah, on days that it's plus, he has good stats. So, but when we take these larger, broader numbers, they become more accurate. We had Jack Campbell at a 940 save percentage at the beginning of the year, and I believe his goals against was under 2. Now his goals against and save percentage are 2.38 and 921, which are basically his league, his average.
Yep.
So what happens is we basically have a larger size of Jack Campbell. This is what Jack Campbell is. And I hear this all the time about guys, and I hear, well, this guy's off to a hot start this year. I believe Chris Kreider, he's off to a hot start. Yeah, because Chris Kreider's not a goal scorer. You know who's never off to a hot start? Connor McDavid or Alex Ovechkin or Leon Draisaitl or Crosby. These guys are never off to hot starts because they are those type of players. Jack Campbell was not a 940 save percentage guy. At some point, he was going to regress to what his mean and his average is. The same thing with Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner was under a point a game guy. We know now that he is an above a point a game guy. He's putting up points now because he was kind of underproducing. And this is why when we see people overreact, the Leafs got off to like a 5-4 start, and it was like everybody's got to breathe. Every 2 and 4.
2 and 4, yeah. Everyone was freaking out.
Every team is going to go through this at some point or another. The bigger the season, the more accurate the number is going to be. This is why last year in the playoffs, Montreal can win 13 games in a month, and now over a broader sample size, we see that there are 8 wins in 44 games. So when we take Marner and Campbell, sometimes people got to kind of dig a little deeper, take a deep breath. These guys are not above or below where they should be. At some point, they're going to get to where they are. And I think both guys are now where they're supposed to be.
Regressing to the mean. Can the Leafs win with 921 goaltending?
Yeah.
I think
that's
so, yeah.
A lot of teams should.
Yeah.
And listen, I think it's a good segue because I know we're going to get into it, but we'll talk about it right now. I think their defense is not awful. Okay. Their defense is not great. Technically their metrics, as we were talking about earlier, their metrics are they're the 4th best defensive team in the league. That's scary because there's a lot of faults there that maybe we hone in on based on that Muzzin and Hall pairing. And I think we can both agree that Hall for sure, maybe even Muzzin might be playing above, where they should be playing, but this is the hand that they're dealt right now. And, they were relying on Campbell quite a bit this year to kind of, blanket those faults. And when the goalies are not making the save, we tend to now point the finger at the defenseman, mostly Muzzin and Hall. If they can shore that up, maybe they give it a depth defenseman. I don't know what they're going to do, to be quite honest with you, but a defenseman bringing them in to just solidify that, you get 921 goaltending, you're a happy coach. You're a happy team. And I honestly think even Mrazek can give that too. Mrazek's done that in the past on worse teams. So the best thing you can do is what Keefe is doing right now. Split the net, get some confidence going. It's a 1A, 1B system. And this is what we've expected. This is what the expectation should have been, that, you know, some guy was going to take the net and maybe play no more than 2 starts, because this is Jack Campbell. So let's see what you got.
I think there's a perception that the Leafs are bad defensively because
Yeah.
in the past, history tells us that they're a bad defensive team.
Yep.
But in actuality, like you said, Frank, all the metrics point to them, and even the metrics that people understand, like goals against, say that they're actually a very good defensive team. We just don't realize and watch every other team and realize that every team has defensive lapses. It's hockey. It's a game of mistakes, right? And
Go ahead.
Your point, it actually leads me to a theory that everyone thinks that the Leafs are going to pick up another defenseman, and I think they should. But I'm actually starting to have this theory that maybe they look at acquiring a defenseman like a Luke Shen, who's a right shot defenseman, can play tough, can stand up for his teammates, can kill penalties still. But the home run that they go after is a forward. And the reason why I think this is because the Nylander-Tavares pairing has not been very great of late. I think I saw a stat where it said the last 12 games, they were on the ice for 13 goals against and four goals for at 5-on-5. Kerfoot's had a good year too. But I don't know. I think they want to add someone to that and make that a more lethal combination. So I just have that theory. And I think defensemen are going to be really, really, really expensive to come by. Like they're talking Ben Sherratt's going to get a first plus. Really? For a rental of Ben Sherratt? I don't get it.
Yeah. If they're going to drop the first, it's got to be somebody with term. But before I do that, Robbie, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I don't believe that this Leaf core is as good as you guys are saying, but the one thing that people will not talk about is that sometimes in sports, the best defense is a good offense. And if the Leafs are able to have higher puck possession than most teams, which they are because they have very talented forwards, and have more offensive zone time, well, that's just less time that defense has to worry about actually defending. Yeah. So I guess, into Joe's point, if you're going to go after a forward, you know, not the worst ideal. It'd be kind of like going all in on the offense, but I don't think they're that great of a defensive team.
And last year they didn't lose because of their defense. They allowed 14 goals in 7 games. They lost because they couldn't score, which has been the same problem the last couple playoffs, actually. So that's why I have that theory that maybe the home run that they're trying to hit is the forward.
Well, we know they were trying to do that last year, and then the names were, you know, you can throw the names around. What, you know, Forsberg. It was Forsberg at one point. Yes. Michael Granlund.
Yeah.
What other names did we hear? I can't remember. What guy from Chicago? I can't remember. But anyways, you know, Dubas is that type, and well, they should. If you're going to spend the first and you try to learn from your Foligno, you know, I guess call it a mistake now in hindsight, but if you're going to drop that prospect, you're going to drop that first. Go with a guy who you know. Go with a guy with term.
Like JT Miller makes a lot of sense to me.
It is, but
he's a good player. And
that's a hell of a
Vancouver, you get the Shen combination. Both of them would be great.
Yep. No, that's fair. That's fair. I'll come back with this even further. I think, you know, again, Kerfoot's had a great year, and I'm not a big Kerfoot guy. But he's you know, proven that he is an asset to this team. I think he'd be the ideal third line winger, to be quite honest with you. I don't even care what he makes, because I know you should be paying 4.5 to play on the third line, but c'est la vie, right? But you know, Mikheyev's doing okay in the third line. So just, it's like musical chairs. At the end of the day, someone's not going to have a seat. So an ideal second line winger would be great. My question back to you is going back to the Marner thing. At what point do you start experimenting again if Marner can get Tavares going? Because Matthews doesn't need Nylander to get him going. You know what I mean? You know, at what point does Nylander find his way back up there? Because I think that might be something you got to look at, because you're going to need 3 lines going. I'm okay with that third line, to be quite honest with you. Camp and Kasha are okay with me. They're doing their job. It's that second line you're going to need scoring, because whoever they face is going to throw their top pairing defenseman at that Matthews line. So,
yep,
you know, that's starting to bother me. The depth scoring is starting to concern me. It's not a big deal, but it's just a little bit of concern there after that stat that you said.
I've kind of gone now with Joe a lot more thinking about this. The Leafs almost have to treat this like a football scenario where you have to build to win in your division. Because right now, if you think about it, there's 4 teams in your division. And when you look at the teams they're going to have to play, they're going to have to play Tampa, skill team, Florida, skill team, Boston, who's now overly a skill team, who's lost guys. Why not go all in on skill? I mean, they played Calgary and got beat up, and it's like, well, can they play that style? Who cares? You're not going to have to play that style in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. To get out of that first round in your division, you're going to have to play a skill game. So, in terms of playing a tough physical game, they're not going to out tough or out physical anybody. Why not go all in with skill? Say we got to beat Tampa, we're going to have to beat Florida, and we might have to beat Boston. Those are not overly tough teams like you would see in a Calgary situation.
Yep, that's fair. That's a good point.
Let's talk about that Calgary situation for a second, because the Leafs just played Calgary. They also played Vancouver, who they thoroughly dominated, and it was the Demko show, who was fantastic. But the Calgary game brought up a conversation in Leafs Nation in that the Flames in that game really out-hit the Leafs and really tried to play a physical game against them and ended up coming out with the win. And there was this notion that whenever teams play physical against the Leafs can't win that way. So do you believe in that notion? Do you think there's some validity to it? Or it was just like, I kind of look at it like every team tries to play the Leafs physical, and most of the time they still win. But as soon as we see one game where the team played really physical and, Campbell didn't have a good game that game at all.
No, he didn't.
All of a sudden, this sparks the discussion, and I'm not totally convinced of it. What do you think, Bob? Because you're not a Leaf fan, so give us the unbiased point of view.
I definitely think that, there are teams that match up better against other teams. The Leafs are not going to match up very well against physical teams. But my other thought is, a big narrative from the playoffs was when Montreal hit the Leafs. They would hit the Leafs because they didn't have the puck.
They never had the puck. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have the puck the whole time, you're going to be the ones that are going to be taking the hits. So do the Leafs match up well against teams that are overly physical? I don't think so. I don't think they're a mentally tough team, so they're probably going to want to stay away from teams that are going to be overly physical. But at the same time, I don't really buy into the hits thing. I more watch kind of the game, and I think you have to. This is where you kind of take stats out and you have to eyeball and say, are they being pushed around? Are they being bullied? Are they being beat at the point of attack? So, like again, Montreal was out hitting them. We're talking like the hits were like 50-10 in the playoffs, and it's like Montreal's being physical. Well, the Leafs have the puck, so how are you supposed to hit somebody if they don't have the puck?
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of go on that notion to say, listen, remember that whole narrative last year that the Leafs couldn't win because out of the Canadian division, yet they've played a lot of the so-called top teams this year and have passed that test with flying colors. And look at the teams they've beaten that kind of fit that mold. They've beaten Calgary already this year. They've beaten St. Louis. They've beaten Colorado. They've beaten Vegas. Just like those are just 4 teams at the top of my head that they thought maybe the Leafs had no business being in the same game because they don't play that style. The best asset the Leafs can do, which maybe 2 other teams I think in the league can play, the Leafs have the ability to turn games into a track meet. The Leafs have the ability to force other teams to play the way they want to play. And a lot of times you can't keep up with that. If they can learn how to finish a little better, and I'm not talking about Matthews, I'm not talking about Marner, I'm talking about some of these other guys that we need to get going. But if they can make other teams play the way they play and dictate the game instead of at least always chasing the other way around, they will have more success. That's just the coach's mentality. Make the other teams play to your strengths. And I think they do. They've been doing that really well this year. And that just goes to show how many times they've been down 2 goals and the lead's gone. And they have the lead back in like 8 minutes. They have that ability. That's going to become Keith. Like that's a role that Keith and his staff need to play to get that ingrained in their head. Because Joe, you're right. That game against Calgary, the Leafs actually should have won that game. There was parts of that game, especially in the first half, they were dictating that game.
Absolutely, yes.
You know what I mean?
Think Calgary got those 2 quick goals, right? Nice face-off play. I thought the Leafs should steal that face-off play and use it against another team. But yeah, up to that point, they were the ones dictating play. I totally agree. Yep.
Yep. And I think it came to the point too. Like, I don't know how much stock you want to throw into this, but is it possible they knew because Simmons wasn't in the lineup, they could take more liberties? I don't know. I've read that. I don't think Simmons has a big effect on the game, but when he wants to throw his weight around and throw some bombs, I don't think there's anybody better. So I don't know. I don't think I haven't seen too many people beat up Simmons, Rob, and especially at his age.
Yeah, Calgary's got to cut like Lucic and Goodbranson.
That would be a great tilt.
Yes.
Lucic and Simmons. Oh, let's make that happen.
But I will tell you, Calgary is built like that. That is playoff built like that.
Mhm.
That is hockey that they could do some damage, especially now picking up the Foley.
Yep.
But the question is, can Calgary score goals in the playoffs? You know what I mean? Like you need to be able to score as well. Do they have now the ability to get the goals? Because that lineup to me, okay, let's take the Foley out of the way because they just got him. But you know, are they really set up to score too? Like, I don't know. Like the Calgary, they maybe two lines, but after that, they were pretty weak on the third and fourth, right? So, but then again, Markstrom 8 shutouts in the league. Jeez, he's a good goalie, right? So maybe he can still. I don't know. I just think the way Sutter is set up, he's done it with LA. The game has evolved. I think they'd be okay, but I much would take the Leafs roster in the playoffs, as crazy as that sounds. So they haven't won, but I don't know. I'll take the skill.
All right, boys. Good session today. Everyone, make sure you subscribe, give us a like, comment, all that good stuff. We appreciate you listening today. And we want to hear your feedback, your comments. If you agree with us, totally disagree, call us morons, whatever. It's all good. Thanks for listening, everyone.